Hello and welcome. If the C722 OA exam has been on your mind and you're wondering how to approach it, then you're in the right place. Our website has C722 OA questions and answers, and it won't cost you a thing. OA exams are tough, so everything from guide to practice questions is free. With over 100 plus success stories, we have proven our videos will help you pass your exam on the first attempt. In this video, we will cover questions from project foundations, value delivery, historical timeline, scientific management, scheduling tools. So let's get started.
Question 1. A regional grocery chain runs the same checkout, restocking, and selling activities at its stores every day, and leadership cannot name any future date when these activities will stop. According to the course, which three characteristics confirm this work is an operation rather than a project? Your options are A specified start date, a specified end date, and a unique deliverable. B, a temporary timeline, a dedicated sponsor, and an approved charter. C, no specifically defined start date, no specifically defined end date, and no unique product, service, or result. D, a fixed budget, a fixed scope, and a fixed schedule. Which one is it? Pause the video if you need more time. The correct answer is C. No specifically defined start date, no specifically defined end date, and no unique product, service, or result. C is correct because an operation is defined by the absence of a defined start, the absence of a defined end, and the production of the same, non-unique output repeatedly. The grocery chain's ongoing, revenue-generating daily work fits all three traits exactly. A is wrong because a specified start, a specified end, and a unique deliverable are the three traits of a project, which is the opposite of an operation. B is wrong because a temporary timeline, a sponsor, and a charter are hallmarks of a project's defining phase, not characteristics of ongoing operational work. D is wrong because a fixed budget, scope, and schedule describe the triple constraint baselines of a project, not the defining traits of an operation. Once a question is answered, it helps to step back and understand the underlying concept. Operations are the backbone of every organization. But what exactly makes work operational? And how do we recognize it? Three characteristics define an operation, and all three must be present at once. There is no defined end date. The output is never unique. It repeats on a predictable cycle. And while every operation has a first day, the start date alone tells us nothing meaningful about classification. Place an operation next to its opposite in the project, and the contrast is sharp. A project has a firm finish line and a singular deliverable. An operation has neither. It sustains the organization on a steady, repeating rhythm with no scheduled stopping point. Think of a grocery store ringing up sales each morning, a factory turning out the same product shift after shift, or a clinic billing for patient visits. Each example repeats on a known rhythm with no planned end. That pattern is the signature of operational work regardless of industry or firm size. Operations sustain an organization, projects advance it. Keeping the two straight is the foundation everything else in project management builds on. When a scenario stresses ongoing, daily, or repeating work with no end in sight, you are almost certainly looking at an operation. Question 2. A construction company signs an agreement to build a new distribution facility for a customer with a groundbreaking date and a contracted handover date, after which it will move on to other clients. How should this work be classified? Your options are A project, because it is a temporary effort with a defined start and end that produces a unique result. B, an operation, because construction companies build things as their daily business. C, a program, because building a facility requires many trades working together. D. A portfolio because it advances the company's long-term goals. Take a second, and which answer would you pick? The correct answer is A. A project because it is a temporary effort with a defined start and end that produces a unique result. A is correct because the facility build has a specified start, a specified end, and a unique deliverable handed to the customer, which is exactly the course's definition of a project. Its temporary bounded nature is the deciding factor. B is wrong because although the company builds as part of its trade, each contracted building has its own start, end, and unique result, so each individual build is a project rather than ongoing operational work. C is wrong because a program is a group of related projects, not a single facility build. One building delivered to one customer is a single project. D is wrong because a portfolio is a group of related programs supporting a long-term objective, a far larger structure than a single facility build. A project is a temporary endeavor with a defined start, a defined end, and a unique deliverable. Those three traits are what set it apart from every other kind of work an organization does. Every project shares exactly three traits: a defined beginning, a defined ending, and a singular output, something that has never existed in that exact form before. When all three hold, the work is a project regardless of the industry surrounding it. A construction company signing a contract to build a distribution facility is a textbook example. There is a groundbreaking date, a contracted handover date, and a finished building that has never existed in that exact form before. Once the keys change hands, that project is closed. Operations keep the lights on by repeating the same output indefinitely. Projects advance the organization by producing something new within a bounded effort. A target completion date, a one-time deliverable, or a handover moment are all signals that a scenario describes a project. No matter the industry or the size of the effort, the test is always the same. Is the work temporary? And does it produce something singular? An organization needs both projects and operations, and knowing which is where the discipline begins. Question 3. An automotive supplier launches a 6-month effort to modify an existing engine so it burns less fuel, aiming to meet market demand, after which the effort ends. Even though the engine already exists, why does the course classify this as a project? Your options are A. Because modifying a product is always part of daily operations. B. Because it is a temporary effort with a defined endpoint that produces a unique result, an improved engine. C. Because it produces the same output repeatedly with no end date. D. Because improvement work is classified as operational maintenance. Before I reveal it, which one do you think is right? The correct answer is B. Because it is a temporary effort with a defined endpoint that produces a unique result, an improved engine. B is correct because a project does not have to create something brand new. It can also improve an existing product or service. The engine modification is temporary, has a defined endpoint, and yields a unique improved result, which makes it a project. A is wrong because modifying a product with a defined endpoint is project work, not daily operations. Operations are the ongoing, repeating activities with no defined end. C is wrong because producing the same output repeatedly with no end date describes an operation. The engine modification ends once the improved design is achieved. D is wrong because operational maintenance means keeping an already delivered product running, such as patching bugs, not a bounded effort that creates an improved engine. Not every project invents something new. Projects can target things that already exist, modifying, refining, or upgrading them into a better state. Understanding this distinction is essential for recognizing projects in the real world. Imagine an automotive supplier that already makes a working engine. They launch a 6-month effort to improve its fuel economy. There's a clear reason, a defined endpoint, and a unique result, the improved engine that didn't exist in that form before. Every trait of a project is present. The mechanism is identical to any project. Someone authorizes the work. A start is set. A finish is defined by achieving the improved state. Resources are committed, then released. And the deliverable is handed back to the business. The key trap is assuming anything touching an existing product must be routine operational work. It isn't. Routine work keeps a product running unchanged. A project deliberately changes it to a new and better state with a start, a finish, and a unique result. So whenever a scenario describes modifying, refining, upgrading, or enhancing something with a clear endpoint, read it as a project. The thing being improved may be a product, a service, or a workflow, but the temporary, bounded effort producing a unique result is what earns the project label. Question 4. The course states that the relationship between projects and operations runs in every direction, including that a project can be undertaken to improve an operation. Which example does the course itself use to illustrate a project that improved an operation? Your options are A. A retail store opening its doors each morning. B. An assembly line producing the same product daily. C. An airline partnering with an aircraft manufacturer to build a new plane. D. The Gilbreths time and motion studies. What's your answer? Commit to one before I continue. The correct answer is D. The Gilbreths time and motion studies. D is correct because the course names the Gilbreths time and motion work as its example of a project that improved an operation. Their studies of repetitive worker motions produced standardized procedures that made operational work more efficient. A is wrong because a retail store opening daily is the course's example of an operation itself, not of a project that improves an operation. B is wrong because an assembly line repeating the same product is a classic operation, not a project undertaken to improve one. C is wrong because building a new aircraft is an example of a brand new creation project, not a project undertaken specifically to improve an existing operation. One of the subtler ideas in project management is that a project and an operation can be aimed at the same work, without becoming the same thing. The two labels describe different layers, the work being done and the work being changed. An operation, by definition, repeats the same activity indefinitely. Left alone, it will keep running with its inefficiencies intact. Improvement has to be injected from outside the routine, and the vehicle for that is a project, a deliberate, bounded effort to study, redesign, and hand back a better way of working. Frank and Lillian Gilbreth, regarded as the parents of time and motion study, ran bounded studies of repetitive manual tasks. Those studies were projects. The repetitive labor on the shop floor was the operation. The result was standardized procedures that made operational work faster, safer, and less tiring, and those procedures are still in use today. The mechanism works like a handoff in reverse. The project studies an existing operation, designs a better method, and then the operation absorbs that method going forward. The project ends, the improved operation continues. Whenever a scenario describes a bounded effort to improve an ongoing activity, resist the temptation to call the whole thing operational just because the subject is. The subject is the operation, the improvement effort is the project. Recognizing both at once is the mark of someone who understands the relationship, not just the definitions. Question 5. A manufacturing manager argues that the factory's assembly line must be a project because it clearly had a first day of production. Using the course's reasoning, why is the assembly line still in operation? Your options are because every operation also had a first day. So, a start date alone proves nothing. the line lacks a predetermined end date and produces the same output repeatedly. B, because assembly lines are always temporary endeavors. C, because the line produces a unique result each day. D, because production work is authorized by a project charter. Pick one. Trust your gut. Here's your chance to test yourself. The correct answer is A, because every operation also had a first day, so a start date alone proves nothing. The line lacks a predetermined end date and produces the same output repeatedly. A is correct because the course warns that a start date alone cannot prove something is a project, since every operation also began on some day. The decisive tests are the absence of a predetermined end date and the production of the same, non-unique output, both of which describe the assembly line. Beta is wrong because an assembly line is ongoing with no specified end date, the opposite of a temporary endeavor. That is precisely why it is an operation. C is wrong because the line produces the same product repeatedly, not a unique result. Uniqueness of output is a project trait, not an operational one. D is wrong because a project charter authorizes a project. Ongoing production work is not initiated by a charter, so this reasoning does not apply. A start date might feel like proof that something is a project, but that reasoning has a critical flaw. Both projects and operations begin on some day, so a start date can never be the feature that tells them apart. Think about an assembly line. Production begins on a specific date, but its end depends on a market that fades at some unscheduled future point, and every unit rolling off is identical. A beginning is universal. It proves nothing about the nature of the work. What actually sorts a project from an operation is two tests. First, is there a predetermined end date fixed in advance? Second, is the output unique or is it the same thing produced repeatedly? The start date fails both. It is a distraction dressed up as evidence. Same domain, opposite classifications. A recurring monthly billing run has a start date but no fixed finish and repeats the same output. It is an operation. The one-time effort to build that billing system has a target completion date and a unique deliverable. That is the project. The start date was useless for telling them apart. When a scenario highlights a beginning, treat it as noise. The two signals that carry the weight are the absence of a predetermined end and the repetition of the same output. Apply those two checks and the classification becomes clear. Question 6. After a hospital's new electronic medical records system goes live and staff begin using it, users report programming bugs, and the IT group releases periodic patches to correct them. According to the course, how is this bug fixing work best classified? Your options are A. A new project because writing code is involved. B. A new program supporting the record system. C. Operational maintenance because patches keep the already delivered system working. D. A project with no resulting operation. Which would you go with? Lock it in before the reveal. The correct answer is C. Operational maintenance because patches keep the already delivered system working. C is correct because once a system has transitioned to operations, fixing bugs through updates and patches is handled as operational maintenance, not as a new project. Maintenance keeps the existing, already delivered system working rather than creating a new unique result. A is wrong because the mere presence of coding does not make work a project. Patching an already live system to keep it functioning is maintenance and operational activity. B is wrong because a program is a group of related projects, which does not describe routine patch releases that sustain a single existing system. D is wrong because a project with no resulting operation describes a study whose deliverable is information, such as the highway traffic study, not ongoing maintenance of a live system. Once a system goes live, the work surrounding it fundamentally changes. The bounded effort of building it ends and something different takes its place. Ongoing operational care. The key test is whether the effort produces something new and unique, or simply restores a system to the working state it was always supposed to have. Maintenance has no firm finish line and yields no novel deliverable. In practice, maintenance arrives as a repeating stream. Defects surface, get triaged, get fixed, and the cycle starts again, with no charter, no sponsor baseline, and no finish line after which the team disbands. A patch is a repair, not a creation. It doesn't produce a singular result that never existed before. It simply brings the system back to the state it was always intended to have. That is the definition of operational upkeep. The moment effort shifts from sustaining the current system to adding a capability it never had, the classification changes. Patching sustains, so patching is operational. That boundary is one of the most reliably tested ideas in this material. Question 7. A year after the electronic medical record system is in routine use, the hospital decides to add a brand new appointment scheduling feature the system never had. According to the course, this addition should be handled as: your options are A. A new project because it creates a new unique result with its own objectives. B. Operational maintenance like routine patching. C. Part of the original system's daily operation. D. A portfolio of related programs. Don't overthink it. Which one feels right? The correct answer is A. A new project because it creates a new unique result with its own objectives. A is correct because adding a new feature creates a new unique result with its own objectives, which warrants initiating a new project. The course contrasts this directly with bug patching, which is maintenance. B is wrong because operational maintenance covers updates and patches that keep the existing system working, not the creation of a brand new capability. C is wrong because daily operation is the routine use of the existing system. Building a feature the system never had is new development, not routine use. D is wrong because a portfolio is a group of related programs supporting a long-term goal, far larger than a single new feature, which is one project. Once a system is live, adding a brand new capability to it is not maintenance. It is a new project. The key signal is that the system never had this capability before. A new feature qualifies as a project because it produces a unique result, has a bounded effort with a clear beginning and end, and carries its own scope and definition of done, none of which describe routine upkeep. Think of a hospital's medical record system running smoothly for a year. A bug fix flows back into the existing system, restoring what was there. But adding an appointment scheduling feature the system never had flows outward. It is a project with its own plan, build, and delivery. Apply the unique result test in either direction. Bug fixes and patches sustain what already exists, that is maintenance. A new feature like fingerprint login delivers something that never existed in the original design. That is a project, regardless of whether the surrounding app keeps running normally. The same live system can be the setting for both maintenance and new projects at different times. The only thing that decides the label is whether the work restores something existing or creates something genuinely new. Question 8. The Federal Highway Administration commissioned a study of traffic patterns and concluded that changes were not sufficient to justify spending on highway additions. No ongoing operation followed. Why does the course still consider this a legitimate, completed project? Your options are A. Because it failed, and failures are always projects. B. Because the study became a permanent daily operation. C. Because it was actually a program made of smaller projects. D. Because its unique result was information, the finding that no change was justified. Got a guess? Lock it in. The correct answer is D. Because its unique result was information, the finding that no change was justified. D is correct because a project's deliverable does not have to be a product or service. It can be information, a decision, or a conclusion. The study's unique result was the finding that no highway change was warranted, which satisfies the definition of a project even though no operation followed. A is wrong because the study did not fail. It answered its question. Whether a project produces an operation has nothing to do with success or failure. B is wrong because the course's whole point is that no operation resulted from this study, so it did not become a daily operation. C is wrong because the study was a single project producing one conclusion, not a group of related projects, which is what a program would be. Most projects hand off a deliverable to an ongoing operation. A product enters manufacturing, a system enters daily use, but that pattern is not a requirement. A project's deliverable can be intangible, and understanding why clarifies what a project actually is. A project's unique result can take many forms. Yes, it can be a product or service, but it can equally be a report, a recommendation, or conclusion. The key is that the result did not exist before the project and could not have existed without it. The Federal Highway Administration commissioned a study to examine whether traffic patterns had changed enough to justify expanding the interstate system. The study concluded they had not. No construction followed, yet the study was a complete, legitimate project because it produced a unique finding that resolved the inquiry it was chartered to settle. Success is measured by whether the project achieved its objective, not by whether an operation rolled out afterward. A study that correctly concludes against spending money has delivered real value. It spared the organization a poor investment. The absence of a follow-on operation is not failure. So remember, when a scenario describes a study whose result is a finding or a decision with no product following, that is still a project. Its deliverable is knowledge, and knowledge is enough. Question 9. A toy manufacturer completes a project to design a new toy in time for the holiday season. Once the design is finished, the company begins manufacturing the toy with no planned end date, and stores sell it. What does the sequence best illustrate about the relationship between projects and operations? Your options are A. That projects and operations are identical activities. B. That a project's deliverables are integrated into ongoing operations, so the project produced the operation. C. That manufacturing the toy is itself a project. D. That designing the toy was operational maintenance. Which one is it? Pause the video if you need more time. The correct answer is B. That a project's deliverables are integrated into ongoing operations, so the project produced the operation. B is correct because the course uses this toy example to show that a project's output is integrated into ongoing business operations, so the values and benefits of the work can be incorporated. The finished design hands off to the no end date manufacturing operation, meaning the project produced the operation. A is wrong because projects and operations are fundamentally different kinds of work. The example highlights how one feeds the other, not that they are the same. C is wrong because manufacturing the toy with no specified end date is the operation. The bounded design effort was the project. D is wrong because designing the new toy was a temporary effort producing a unique result, which is a project, not operational maintenance. A project doesn't truly end when the deliverable is finished. It ends when that deliverable is absorbed into the ongoing work of the organization, and that handoff is where a project's value is actually realized. Every project moves through 3 phases in relation to operations: building something unique and bounded, handing it off, and then the organization running it indefinitely. The value accrues during the running, not the building. Take a toy manufacturer. The design work is the project, bounded with a firm deadline. Once complete, it flows into manufacturing and then into sales, both of which continue indefinitely. The project produced the operations. A finished design sitting in a drawer delivers nothing. For a handoff to succeed, the output must be integrated into daily operations. People must be trained to use it. And the result must be genuinely usable, because a deliverable no one uses produces no benefit, no matter how well it was built. Projects and operations are partners, not rivals. A project can create an operation, and operational needs can launch new projects. The moment the deliverable enters steady routine is where a project finally pays off. Question 10. A person plans and opens a new restaurant. Handling permits, equipment purchases, supplier selection, and hiring before a target opening date. After the doors open, the daily work becomes ordering supplies, preparing food, setting specials, and totaling receipts. Which statement correctly splits the project from the operation? Your options are A. Both the planning and the daily activities are operations. B. Both the planning and the daily activities are projects. C. Planning and opening the restaurant is the project. The daily activities afterward are the operation. D. Planning is an operation. The daily activities are the project. Take a second. Which answer would you pick? The correct answer is C. Planning and opening the restaurant is the project. The daily activities afterward are the operation. C is correct because the course frames planning and starting the business as a project, because it is a temporary effort with a target date and a unique result, opening the restaurant. The ongoing daily activities that follow have no end date and repeat, which makes them the operation. A is wrong because the planning effort is bounded and produces a unique result, which is a project, not an operation. B is wrong because the daily activities repeat indefinitely with no end date, which makes them an operation, not a project. D is wrong because this reverses the relationship. Planning is the project, and the repeating daily work is the operation, not the other way around. Not every project comes with a formal charter or a corporate budget. The definition of a project applies just as cleanly to everyday efforts. What matters is the underlying structure, not the paperwork. Any effort is a project if it is temporary, aimed at a unique result, and bounded on both ends. Taking a course qualifies. It has an enrollment date, a completion date, and produces a one-time outcome, improved understanding. Opening a restaurant is a textbook project. There's a target date to be operational. One-time decisions about permits, equipment, suppliers, and staff. All bounded effort aimed at a singular result that never existed before. The moment the doors open is the dividing line. Before it, every task serves the one-time goal of creating the restaurant. After it, tasks repeat indefinitely with no unique output. That's the operation. The building doesn't change, but the nature of the work does. Strip away the labels and look for the start, the finish, and the uniqueness. If those traits are present, whether it's a corporate initiative or a side venture, it's a project. The classification follows the structure, not the reputation. Question 11. An automobile manufacturer establishes an effort to develop a new full-size passenger car, which requires separate efforts for improved seating, a more efficient engine, new marketing and sales work, and improved servicing procedures. What is this larger effort made of several related projects called? Your options are A. A portfolio, B. A program, C. An operation, D. A standalone project. Before I reveal it, which one do you think is right? The correct answer is B. A program. B is correct because a program is a group of related projects that support the goals and objectives of the company. The full-size car effort bundles several related projects for seating, engine, marketing, and servicing, which is exactly a program. A is wrong because a portfolio is a group of related programs, one level higher than the single car program described here. C is wrong because an operation is ongoing daily work with no end date, not a bounded bundle of related development projects. D is wrong because a standalone project is a single project whose output applies broadly and belongs to no program. Here, several projects are grouped together, which is a program. When several related projects share a common purpose and need to be coordinated together, we call that bundle a program. Understanding what separates a program from a single project is essential for the exam. A program sits one level above its projects. Each project can stand on its own, but together they share a direction, shared resources, and shared dependencies. And the common objective is what binds them into a program rather than just a collection of separate work. Take an automobile manufacturer developing a new full-size passenger car. The effort splits into 4 projects: improving the seating, developing a more efficient engine, building marketing and sales work, and refining servicing procedures. Each is its own project. Together they form the passenger car program. The boundary exam writer's probe is this: a single bounded effort producing one deliverable is a project. Several related deliverables coordinated toward one larger outcome form a program. If the pieces only make sense together, the bundle is the program, and each piece inside it is a project. Whether it's a passenger car or a wireless speaker line, the pattern is the same. Read for grouping and shared purpose. One bounded deliverable is a project, and a set of related projects steered toward a single larger goal is a program. Question 12. An automaker pursuing a long-term goal of gaining market share across the passenger car market groups. Together its new full-size car program, a new mid-size car program, and a new compact car program. This grouping of related programs is best described as A. Your options are A. Project, B. Operation, C. Charter, D. Portfolio. What's your answer? Commit to one before I continue. The correct answer is D. Portfolio. D is correct because a portfolio is a group of related programs that support a long-term company goal or objective. Bundling the full-size, mid-size and compact car programs to gain market share fits the definition exactly. A is wrong because a project is a single temporary effort producing a unique result, far smaller than a grouping of multiple programs. B is wrong because an operation is ongoing daily work with no defined end, not a strategic grouping of programs. C is wrong because a charter is a document that authorizes a single project. It is not a grouping of programs. Strategy unfolds over years and across many fronts simultaneously. To manage that complexity, organizations group their work into 3 nested tiers: projects, programs, and portfolios, each one a level broader than the last. A project produces a single unique result. A program coordinates related projects toward one major outcome. A portfolio coordinates related programs toward a long-term strategic goal. C722, the highest tier, concerned with selection and balance rather than building. Using an automobile manufacturer as an example, a full-size, a mid-size, and a compact car program each represent a bundle of related projects. Together, those 3 programs form a portfolio aimed at capturing more of the passenger car market. A goal no single program could achieve alone. The financial portfolio is a useful mental model. An investor holds many stocks with differing cost, benefit, and risk, balanced so the whole outperforms any single holding. An organizational portfolio works the same way. Programs with differing cost, benefit, and risk, balanced to advance one overarching objective. When a scenario describes a long-range ambition supported by several major programs, the grouping at the top is a portfolio. Projects nest inside programs. Programs nest inside portfolios. and the portfolio keeps them all coordinated toward the organization's biggest strategic bets. Question 13. An automaker develops a new battery that resists extreme temperatures and could be used in every vehicle the company makes, not just one car line. The course uses this example to show that. Your options are A. Not every project belongs to a program. A project with broadly applicable output can stand alone. B. Every project must belong to a program. C. A battery effort is actually a portfolio. D. Broadly useful work is always operational. Pick one. Trust your gut. Here's your chance to test yourself. The correct answer is A. Not every project belongs to a program. A project with broadly applicable output can stand alone. A is correct because the course uses the battery example to show that not all projects belong to a program. Because the battery benefits all vehicles rather than one program, it can exist as a standalone project. B is wrong because the battery example is the exception that disproves this. A project whose output applies broadly need not belong to any one program. C is wrong because a portfolio is a group of related programs. A single battery development effort is one project, not a portfolio. D is wrong because the battery is developed through a bounded effort producing a unique result, which is a project, not ongoing operational work. Not every project has to live inside a program. When a project's output is broad enough to benefit the entire organization rather than a single initiative, it earns a special designation, the standalone project. A standalone project is still a project in every mechanical sense. Bounded, temporary, and aimed at a unique result. What sets it apart is its reporting relationship. Its deliverable becomes a shared asset that many programs, or the entire operation, can draw upon. The classic example is a temperature-resistant battery developed by an automaker, because it works in every vehicle the company makes, current and future. Tying it to one car program would understate its reach. It stands alone, serving all programs at once. Remember, several related deliverables form a program. Several related programs form a portfolio. But a lone deliverable with company-wide reach belongs to neither grouping. Organizational structure should follow the work and not force work into a false boundary. The exam signal is breadth of applicability. When a single deliverable spans the whole company rather than one initiative, like a chip every product could use. The right answer is stand-alone project, not a member of any program. Question 14. Using the course's memorized shorthand for the three-tier hierarchy, which statement is correct? Your options are A project is a group of programs. B, a program is a group of portfolios. C, a project is a temporary activity that creates a unique result. A program is a group of projects, and a portfolio is a group of programs. D, a portfolio is a single temporary activity that creates a unique result. Which would you go with? Lock it in before the reveal. The correct answer is C. A project is a temporary activity that creates a unique result. A program is a group of projects, and a portfolio is a group of programs. C is correct because the course's exact shorthand is that a project creates a unique result. A program is a group of projects, and a portfolio is a group of programs. This option states all three correctly. A is wrong because this inverts the hierarchy. A project is the smallest unit, not a group of programs. A portfolio is the group of programs. B is wrong because a program is a group of projects, not a group of portfolios. Portfolios sit above programs, not below. D is wrong because a portfolio is a group of related programs, not a single temporary activity. That description belongs to a project. Organizations structure their change work through three tiers that nest precisely inside one another. Understanding the exact relationship between them is what prevents the terms from blurring together on the exam and in practice. The compact shorthand is 3 statements, each building on the one before. A project is a temporary activity that creates a unique result. A program is a group of related projects. A portfolio is a group of related programs. Picture a car company aiming to grow its market share. That long-term goal is a portfolio. Inside it sit programs for full-size, mid-size and compact cars. Inside the full-size program are individual projects for seating, engine, marketing and servicing, 3 tiers, cleanly nested. The repeated word related is the binding logic of the whole framework. Projects are related because they serve a common program goal. Programs are related because they serve a common portfolio objective. Each tier exists to coordinate the tier beneath it toward a goal the lower tier could not reach alone. The direction of nesting runs only one way. The project is always the smallest piece, the portfolio always the largest. Each tier is a group of the thing below it, never above it. Hold that fixed and the 3 tiers will never collapse into one another. Question 15. A company insists that every project it funds must agree with its broader strategic objectives, so their work consistently produces business outcomes that enhance value and competitive edge. The course calls this connection between project outcomes and company goals. Your options are A. Opportunity cost, B. Alignment, C. Scope creep, D. Stewardship. Don't overthink it. Which one feels right? The correct answer is B. Alignment. B is correct because alignment is the course's term for connecting project outcomes to company goals, so the planned and executed project agrees with the organization's strategic objectives. That is exactly what the scenario describes. A is wrong because opportunity cost is the benefit foregone by not using resources for the next best alternative, not the connection between projects and strategy. C is wrong because scope creep is the uncontrolled expansion of project scope, a threat during execution, not the linking of outcomes to goals. D is wrong because stewardship is a principle about being a diligent, caring custodian, not the specific concept of tying project outcomes to company strategy. Alignment is the principle that connects project outcomes directly to company goals. When a project is aligned, the work being done advances what the organization is actually trying to achieve, not just keeping busy, but producing real strategic value. The stakes are high because projects demand substantial commitments. Money, people, equipment, and time are finite. They cannot be recovered once spent. If those resources don't support organizational goals, the organization has weakened itself through activity alone. Alignment is checked by tracing a direct line from a project's outcome to a goal the organization actually holds. A retailer focused on customer retention should trace a loyalty program straight to that strategy. A manufacturer targeting cost reduction should trace automation to lower unit costs. When that line is clear, the project is aligned. It's worth separating alignment from related ideas. Alignment is not opportunity cost, the value of the next best use of resources. It is not scope creep, uncontrolled growth of project boundaries. And it is not stewardship, the broader duty of careful custodianship. Alignment is narrower. Does this project's outcome serve a goal the company actually holds? Ultimately, projects exist to serve strategy, and alignment is the name for that service. The practitioner who keeps the line from outcome to goal visible ensures every resource the project consumes is genuinely earned. Question 16. The course presents a system in which projects and operations create something that produces results, which yield returns, which finally produce worth. What is the correct order of the value delivery chain? Your options are A. Value, then benefits, then outcomes, then deliverables. B, outcomes, then deliverables, then value, then benefits. C, benefits, then value, then deliverables, then outcomes. D, deliverables, then outcomes, then benefits, then value. Got a guess? Lock it in. The correct answer is D. Deliverables, then outcomes, then benefits, then value. D is correct because the course's chain in order is deliverables to outcomes to benefits to value. A deliverable is produced. It generates an outcome. The outcome yields a benefit, and the benefit delivers value. A is wrong because this reverses the chain. Value is the final link, not the first, and deliverables are the first link, not the last. B is wrong because the order is scrambled. Deliverables come first, not second, and value is last, not third. C is wrong because this is out of order. The chain begins with deliverables and ends with value, not the arrangement shown here. Organizations run projects not to produce outputs for their own sake, but to ultimately create worth. The path from raw output to worth follows a precise four-link chain that always runs in the same fixed order. The chain has 4 links in a fixed order: deliverables, outcomes, benefits, and value. A deliverable is the thing made. An outcome is what changes in the world once that deliverable is put to use. A benefit is the concrete return the organization gains from that change. And value is the ultimate worth all of those benefits add up to. Walk the chain through one example. A new dispatch tool is the deliverable. Dispatchers using it to plan routes faster is the outcome. More cargo moved per trip and lower fuel spend are the benefits. And the overall worth realized by the organization and its stakeholders is the value. The distinction exam writers test the most is outcome versus benefit. An outcome is the changed state of the world, what actually happens because the deliverable exists. A benefit is the realized return from that changed state. The outcome comes first and makes the benefit possible. The order is never interchangeable because each link depends on the one before it. Deliverables are always first, value is always last. Skipping or scrambling a link breaks the logic entirely. Question 17. In the value delivery system, the course defines one term as a return realized by the organization. Which term carries that specific definition? Your options are A, benefit, B, deliverable, C, outcome, D, value. Which one is it? Pause the video if you need more time. The correct answer is A, benefit. A is correct because the course defines a benefit as a return realized by the organization. It is the third link in the chain sitting between the outcome and the ultimate value. B is wrong because a deliverable is the tangible or intangible output a project produces, the first link in the chain, not a realized return. C is wrong because an outcome is the result of a process or project, the second link in the chain, not the realized return itself. D is wrong because value is something of worth, importance, or usefulness, the ultimate link in the chain, not specifically a realized return. In project management, 4 terms form a precise chain explaining why any project is worth doing. These aren't casual synonyms. Each names a distinct concept, and keeping them separate is essential for any practitioner. The 4 terms are deliverable, outcome, benefit, and value. A deliverable is the tangible or intangible output produced, the thing made and handed over. An outcome is the result that follows from that deliverable, the change that occurs once it is used. A single bank example threads all 4 links together. The fraud detection system is the deliverable. Fewer fraudulent transactions slipping through is the outcome. The money the bank no longer loses is the benefit, a return it actually realizes. The stronger, more trusted institution that results is the value. The most tested boundary is between outcome, benefit, and value. A benefit is not a hope, It is a return that actually materializes once the outcome takes hold. Value is broader still, the overall significance of all realized returns combined, the ultimate reason the project mattered. Reciting the chain in order keeps the definitions from collapsing into one another. Deliverable is the output, outcome is the result, benefit is the realized return, and value is the ultimate worth. Hold each definition separately and you can explain not just what a project produces, but why it matters. Question 18. In the value delivery pyramid, leadership wants to know which tier is led by the business and provides business value through goal alignment and program selection. Which tier is it? Your options are A. Project management, B. Portfolio management, C. Program management, D. Operations. Take a second, and which answer would you pick? The correct answer is B. Portfolio management. B is correct because portfolio management sits at the top of the pyramid, is led by the business, and provides business value through business goal alignment, program selection, and portfolio optimization. A is wrong because project management is the base tier. It provides quality deliverables and is concerned with scope, cost, and schedule, not business value. C is wrong because program management is the middle tier and provides stakeholder value through ownership of benefits, not business value. D is wrong because operations are the ongoing work that receives deliverables. The pyramid's business value tier is portfolio management. In project management, the relationship between portfolios, programs, and projects is often visualized as a pyramid, each tier with its own leader, concerns, and kind of value it creates. Let's unpack why portfolio management sits at the very top. The pyramid places portfolio management at the apex because it is the tier closest to organizational strategy. Below it sits program management, and at the base is project management, each layer broader in scope as you move up. Portfolio management is responsible for three things: aligning programs to business goals, selecting which programs to pursue, and optimizing the overall mix. These are organization-wide strategic decisions, which is why the business itself, not an individual project leader, steers this tier. The key row to lock in is this matching. The portfolio tier led by the business delivers business value. Business value is not tied to any single deliverable. It accrues to the whole organization when strategic bets are chosen and balanced well. Watch out for the common trap of attaching business value to a program or project. Business value belongs exclusively at the top of the pyramid, with the tier that selects programs and aligns them to strategy. Question 19. A status review asks which tier of the value delivery pyramid is responsible for the quality of deliverables and focuses on scope, cost, and schedule. Which tier fits? Your options are A. Portfolio management, B. Program management, C. Project management, D. Senior management. Before I reveal it, which one do you think is right? The correct answer is C. Project management. C is correct because project management is the base tier, concerned with delivery of the product or service and with scope, cost, and schedule, and it is responsible for the quality of deliverables. That is the value it provides. A is wrong because portfolio management provides business value through goal alignment and program selection, not direct responsibility for deliverable quality. B is wrong because program management provides stakeholder value and owns benefits across multiple projects, but the quality of individual deliverables sits with the project tier. D is wrong because senior management sets strategy and feeds it to portfolios. It is not the pyramid tier responsible for deliverable quality. At the base of the value delivery pyramid sits project management. and it carries one defining responsibility: the quality of deliverables. Unlike the tiers above it, this is where the actual product or service gets built. Each tier of the pyramid owns a different kind of value. Portfolio management delivers business value, program management delivers stakeholder value, and project management delivers quality deliverables. Matching the right tier to the right value type is exactly what exam questions test. The project tier manages the triple constraint, WGU scope, cost, and schedule, while protecting quality throughout. The deliverable must meet its requirements, come in on budget, and finish on time. The project manager balances these pressures and is accountable for the result. Quality is created in the doing, not in the overseeing. The higher tiers set direction, but neither actually assembles the deliverable. Only the project tier builds the thing, which is why only the project tier can be held responsible for how well it turns out. When a scenario asks which tier owns deliverable quality or manages scope, cost, and schedule, the answer is always project management. The trap is drifting up to program or portfolio, but quality cannot be delegated upward. It lives where the work is done. Question 20. The course describes how strategic information flows outward through the value delivery system so the whole system stays aligned with strategy. What is the correct top-down order of that flow? Your options are A. Operations, then projects, then portfolios, then senior management. B. Portfolios, then senior management, then operations, then programs. C. Programs, then operations, then senior management, then portfolios. D. Senior management, then portfolios, then programs and projects, then operations. What's your answer? Commit to one before I continue. The correct answer is D. Senior management, then portfolios, then programs and projects, then operations. D is correct because top-down, senior management shares strategy with portfolios. Portfolios pass desired outcomes and value to programs and projects, and program and project deliverables flow to operations. The reverse direction carries feedback. A is wrong because this is the bottom-up feedback direction, reversed and scrambled, not the top-down flow, which begins with senior management. B is wrong because the order is jumbled. Senior management starts the top-down flow and feeds portfolios first, not the other way around. C is wrong because this order is incorrect. The flow begins with senior management and ends at operations, not with programs feeding operations first. Every portfolio, program, project, and operation in an organization is part of a single value delivery system. And what keeps that system coherent is the continuous flow of information through it. That flow runs in two directions, downward from strategy and upward as feedback. The downward flow starts with senior management sharing strategic intent with portfolios. Portfolios translate that into desired outcomes and pass it to programs and projects, which produce deliverables that flow onto operations. Strategy travels the full chain, translated at every tier into something concrete and actionable. The downward path matters because strategy is useless if it stays locked at the top. At each tier, it gets translated into terms the next tier can act on, from strategic intent to desired outcomes and benefits to working deliverables that operations can run. The upward path runs the same route in reverse and is just as critical. Operations surface adjustments, fixes, and updates to deliverables. Programs and projects report performance and progress. Portfolios send evaluations up to senior management. Without this feedback loop, leadership would be staring blind, issuing strategy with no read on whether it is landing. The key is remembering what each direction carries. Downward moves strategy, outcomes, and deliverables. Upward moves performance data, evaluations, and the signals that something needs to change. The downward path sets the course. The upward path corrects it. Question 21. On the project management timeline, One scheduling technique was invented in 1957 by a chemical company seeking to manage complex plant work. Which organization invented the critical path method? Your options are A. The DuPont Corporation, B. The U.S. Navy, C. The U.S. Department of Defense, D. The Project Management Institute. Pick one. Trust your gut. Here's your chance to test yourself. The correct answer is A. The DuPont Corporation. A is correct because the course's timeline credits the DuPont Corporation with inventing the critical path method in 1957. It is one of the most heavily tested rows on the timeline. B is wrong because the U.S. Navy is associated with the program evaluation and review technique developed in 1958 for the Polaris project, not with the critical path method. C is wrong because the U.S. Department of Defense mandated the work breakdown structure approach in 1962. It did not invent the critical path method. D is wrong because the Project Management Institute was launched in 1969 to promote the profession and later publish the PMBOK. It did not invent the critical path method. The critical path method is a scheduling technique that identifies the longest chain of dependent tasks in a project. So, what was that to you? The chain that sets the absolute minimum time to finish. Understanding where it came from and how it works is essential for the exam. The exam zeroes in on three facts together. The critical path method was invented by the DuPont Corporation in 1957. DuPont needed it because managing a chemical plant means coordinating hundreds of interlocking tasks. And without a model of dependencies, managers could not tell which delays actually mattered. Mechanically, the method lays out every activity, notes which depend on which, estimates durations, then traces the longest dependent path from start to finish. That longest path is the critical path. Any delay on it delays the whole project. Activities off the critical path have slack, room to slip without harming the finish date. The most common confusion is between CPM and its sibling technique, PERT, the Program Evaluation and Review Technique. Both deal with activity networks, but their origins are distinct. CPM came from DuPont in 1957. PERT came from the United States Navy 1 year later. Origin is the clean separator. Hold those three together, the method, the company, and the year, and keep CPM distinct from the Navy's technique that followed. That precision is exactly what exam writers test. Question 22. A scheduling technique was developed in 1958 to handle activities whose durations were uncertain on a major missile program. For which project was the Program Evaluation and Review technique originally developed? Your options are A. The Manhattan Project, B. The Tennessee Valley Authority, C. The U.S. Navy's Polaris Project, D. The Interstate Highway System. Which would you go with? Lock it in before the reveal. The correct answer is C. The U.S. Navy's Polaris Project. C is correct because the course states that the Program Evaluation and Review technique was invented in 1958 for the U.S. Navy's Polaris Project, where activity durations varied and needed estimating. A is wrong because the Manhattan Project, tied to World War II, highlighted the need for critical path tools, but is not where this technique was developed. B is wrong because the Tennessee Valley Authority was created in 1933 as a massive project. It is unrelated to the development of this technique. D is wrong because the interstate highway system is connected to the highway traffic study example, not to the origin of this technique. The Program Evaluation and Review technique, RFE PERT, was created in 1958 to handle a specific problem, scheduling work that had never been done before. Its birthplace was the U.S. Navy's Polaris missile program, and that pairing is one of the most tested facts in project management history. PERT models a project as a network of activities, but unlike methods that assign a single fixed duration to each task, PERT works with ranges. Because Polaris involved unprecedented engineering, no one could say exactly how long any piece would take, so the technique was built to embrace that uncertainty directly. The most common exam error is swapping PERT and the critical path method. Both are network scheduling techniques from the late 1950s, but their origins are distinct. PERT came from the Navy and Polaris in 1958. CPM came from DuPont 1 year earlier in 1957. PERT handles uncertain durations. CPM assumes durations are known. A reliable memory hook. PERT and Polaris both start with the same letter, and both concern uncertainty. Lock in the row. Navy, Polaris, 1958, uncertain durations, and you will never confuse it with DuPont's method again. Question 23. In 1962, a major government body required the use of an approach that methodically breaks deliverables down into activities and tasks. Which organization mandated the work breakdown structure approach? Your options are A. The DuPont Corporation, B. The U.S. Department of Defense, C. The International Project Management Association, D. The Project Management Institute. Don't overthink it. Which one feels right? The correct answer is B. The U.S. Department of Defense. B is correct because the course's timeline states that the U.S. Department of Defense mandated the work breakdown structure approach in 1962. A is wrong because the DuPont Corporation invented the critical path method in 1957, not the work breakdown structure mandate. C is wrong because the International Project Management Association was created in 1965. It did not mandate the work breakdown structure. D is wrong because the Project Management Institute launched in 1969. The work breakdown structure mandate predates it and came from the Department of Defense. The work breakdown structure is a method for organizing a project by decomposing its final deliverable into smaller and smaller pieces, down to the individual tasks required to produce them. It was mandated by the United States Department of Defense in 1962 for use on its large-scale programs. The reason a Defense Department would mandate this approach lies in the sheer scale of its programs. Weapon systems involve so many components and contractors that, without a disciplined decomposition, no one could plan, cost, or track the work. Mechanically, the approach starts from the top with the final deliverable and breaks it into major components. So, hardware, software, training, documentation, then breaks each component further until every piece is small enough to estimate, assign, and complete. The WBS sits alongside two earlier scheduling techniques. The critical path method and PERT address the sequencing and timing of activities, while the WBS address the prior question of what all the activities even are. Together, these three tools formalized modern project management. The road to memorize is clean. The work breakdown structure was mandated by the United States Department of Defense in 1962, not DuPont, not the Navy, and not 1957. Hold the approach, the organization, and the year together, and you will not mix them up. Question 24. A student is memorizing two milestones: the year the professional body promoting project management was launched, and the year that body first published its main standard. Which pairing is correct? Your options are A. The Institute launched in 1965. The standard was published in 1990. B. The Institute launched in 1958. The standard was published in 1969. C. The Institute launched in 1987. The standard was published in 1969. D. The institute launched in 1969. The standard was published in 1987. Got a guess? Lock it in. The correct answer is D. The institute launched in 1969. The standard was published in 1987. D is correct because the course's timeline places the launch of the Project Management Institute in 1969 and the first publication of the PMBOK in 1987. A is wrong because the year 1965 marks the creation of the International Project Management Association, not the Project Management Institute, and the PMBOK appeared in 1987, not Narayana. B is wrong because the year 1958 marks the development of the program, evaluation and review technique. The institute launched in 1969 and the standard was published in 1987. C is wrong because these years are swapped and wrong. The institute launched in 1969 and the standard was published in 1987. Project management didn't emerge fully formed. It was built through deliberate acts of institution building. 3 founding milestones transformed a collection of techniques into a recognized global profession, each separated from the next by years worth remembering precisely. The International Project Management Association was founded in 1965. The Project Management Institute followed in 1969, 4 years later. Then, nearly 2 decades after that, the first project management body of knowledge was published in 1987. The gaps themselves are a memory anchor, a short jump, then a long one. Visualizing these on a timeline makes the spacing clear. Our PMA and PMI sit close together in the 1960s, while the PMBOK appears much later, capturing decades of accumulated practice that had never been formally codified before. These bodies mattered because they gave the field structure it had never had, a common vocabulary, shared accepted practice, and institutional credentials are what separate a craft from a recognized profession. The PMBOK in particular gave practitioners a single reference they could all point to. The classic exam trap is confusing which year belongs to which milestone. Pin each separately. The association first in 1965, the institute next in 1969, and the published standard last in 1987. Keep the 2 bodies distinct from each other and both distinct from the standard. Question 25. The course explains that before the mid to late 1800s, there were essentially no professional managers. Owners managed and old managers trained new ones. Which 2 developments made professional managers separate from owners necessary? Your options are A. Government regulation and the rise of labor unions. B. The internet and desktop computers. C. Larger corporations and rapidly changing technology. D. The PMBOK and the founding of the Project Management Institute. Which one is it? Pause the video if you need more time. The correct answer is C. Larger corporations and rapidly changing technology. C is correct because the course attributes the need for professional managers to the rise of larger corporations combined with rapidly changing technology, which outgrew the old model of owners managing and old managers training new ones. A is wrong because the course does not cite government regulation or labor unions as the cause. It points to organizational size and technological change. B is wrong because the internet and desktop computers are later timeline markers from the 1980s and 1990s, well, after professional management first became necessary. D is wrong because the PMBOK and the Institute are 20th century developments that came after the need for professional managers had already emerged. Project management is a surprisingly young formal discipline. To understand what it is, we need to understand why it appeared when it did. And that story comes down to 2 specific historical forces. Before the mid to late 19th century, there were essentially no professional managers as a separate class. Owners ran their businesses personally, and management knowledge passed informally from one generation to the next. That model had a breaking point. Two forces combined to break the old arrangement. First, corporations grew so large and complex that no owner could personally oversee everything. Second, technology began changing so fast that informally handed down methods could not keep pace. Together, size and technological change made dedicated, trained managers essential. Before 1900, only the church and the military had developed models for organizing large groups of people. As corporations grew and technology accelerated, management science emerged in the first half of the 20th century, and project management grew as one specialized branch of that broader professionalization. The key point exam writers test is the specific pair of causes: larger corporations and rapidly changing technology. Not regulation, not a single invention. Both together outgrew the informal owner-manager model and gave rise to the formal study of management, including project management. Question 26. Two early researchers are called the parents of time and motion study, and one of them famously used early motion picture technology to capture and analyze workers' repetitive motions. Who were they? Your options are A. Frank and Lillian Gilbreths, B. Frederick Taylor and Henry Gantt, C. Henry Gantt and Lillian Gilbreths, D. Frederick Taylor and Frank Gilbreths. Take a second. Which answer would you pick? The correct answer is A. Frank and Lillian Gilbreths. A is correct because the course names Frank and Lillian Gilbreths as the parents of time and motion study, with Frank using early motion pictures to record and study repetitive worker motions to reduce fatigue and injury. B is wrong because Frederick Taylor is the father of scientific management and Henry Gantt created the Gantt chart. Neither is a parent of time and motion study. C is wrong because Henry Gantt is known for the Gantt chart, not time and motion study. Only Lillian, not Gantt, belongs to that work. D is wrong because while Frank Gilbreths belongs to time and motion study, Frederick Taylor is separately the father of scientific management. So this pairing is incorrect. Frank and Lillian Gilbreths are known as the parents of time and motion study, a discipline built on one deceptively simple question: how exactly do workers perform repetitive tasks? And how can wasted effort be eliminated? Frank Gilbreths was a pioneer in using motion picture cameras to film workers on the job. Recording the task on film allowed the Gilbreths to replay and slow down each movement, identify wasted motion, and redesign the work so the same output required fewer and smoother actions. The benefits of motion study run along 4 lines: reducing worker fatigue, preventing accidents and injury, enabling realistic project schedules by knowing how long tasks take, and producing trainable standards that document the best known way to perform each piece of work. Their method produced 3 enduring contributions: using motion pictures to analyze work, standardized procedures capturing the best way to perform each task, and reliable task estimation that feeds directly into modern scheduling and work breakdown structures. When you see time and motion study or motion pictures used to analyze workers, that is uniquely the Gilbreths, distinct from scientific management or the bar chart of tasks and durations, which belong to other founders of the field. Question 27. One scholar used scientific reasoning to study human labor and determined that breaking work into individual, discrete activities improves both human and organizational productivity. Known as the father of scientific management, who is he? Your options are A. Henry Gantt, B. Frank Gilbreths, C. Lillian Gilbreths, D. Frederick Taylor. Before I reveal it, which one do you think is right? The correct answer is D. Frederick Taylor. D is correct because Frederick Taylor is the father of scientific management, who applied scientific reasoning to labor and showed that decomposing work into discrete activities raises productivity, a direct ancestor of the work breakdown structure. A is wrong because Henry Gantt, an associate of Taylor, is known for the Gantt chart, not for founding scientific management. B is wrong because Frank Gilbreths is known with Lillian for time and motion study and motion picture analysis, not as the father of scientific management. C is wrong because Lillian Gilbreths contributed to time and motion study and wrote The Psychology of Management. She is not the father of scientific management. Frederick Taylor is known as the father of scientific management, and his ideas form one of the conceptual roots of modern project management. Understanding what made his thinking revolutionary helps you anchor his contribution clearly. Taylor argued that a job should never be treated as an indivisible whole. By decomposing work into its component activities, studying each one, and recombining the improved pieces, both the individual worker and the organization become more productive simultaneously. In practice, this meant watching workers, measuring what they did, and using time and motion studies to turn work itself into an object of analysis, replacing inherited habit and guesswork with deliberate, repeatable method. The habits Taylor established still shape project management today. Scientific reasoning applied to work, the breakdown of effort into discrete activities, and the resulting ability to schedule work and determine resource requirements all trace back to his program. Remember, Taylor's signature is scientific management and decomposing work into discrete activities, the direct ancestor of the work breakdown structure that keeps him clearly distinct from the Gilbreths and from the creator of the Gantt chart. Question 28. A project manager is using a horizontal bar chart that sequences tasks and shows the duration of each. The course credits this tool to an associate of Frederick Taylor who studied Navy ship construction in the First World War. What is the tool? Your options are A. The critical path method, B. The Gantt chart, C. The work breakdown structure, D. The program evaluation and review technique. What's your answer? Commit to one before I continue. The correct answer is B. The Gantt chart? B is correct because the Gantt chart is the horizontal bar chart created by Henry Gantt that sequences tasks and shows each task's duration. Gantt was an associate of Taylor and studied Navy shipbuilding in the First World War. A is wrong because the critical path method is a network scheduling technique from DuPont, not a horizontal bar chart of tasks and durations. C is wrong because the work breakdown structure decomposes deliverables into activities and tasks. It is not the horizontal bar chart described here. D is wrong because the program evaluation and review technique estimates uncertain activity durations for networks. It is not the Gantt bar chart. Henry Gantt gave project management one of its most enduring tools, the Gantt chart. Working alongside Frederick Taylor and studying Navy ship construction during World War I, Gantt devised a simple visual format that has never been replaced. At its core, a Gantt chart is a horizontal bar chart. Each task appears as a bar. The bar's position shows when the task happens, and the bar's length shows how long it lasts. Together, the bars reveal the shape of the whole schedule at a glance. A table of start and finish times is hard to read at a glance. A bar chart laid along a timeline immediately reveals overlaps, gaps, and sequence. That legibility is exactly why the Gantt chart became a standard across industries. Modern software has greatly extended what a Gantt chart can do. On top of the basic bars, tools now show dependencies between tasks, flag milestones, calculate the critical path, and shed resources, turning the humble bar chart into a sophisticated scheduling engine. Henry Gantt, associate of Taylor, student of First World War Navy shipbuilding, and creator of the horizontal bar chart that sequences tasks and shows their durations. The bar chart is what keeps him distinct from every other founder in the field. Question 29. The course notes that powerful computer software greatly increased the usefulness of the Gantt chart. Which set of functions does it list as the additions modern software brought? Your options are A. Dependencies, milestones, critical path calculation, and resource scheduling. B. Payroll, invoicing, tax filing, and hiring. C. Email, video calls, file storage, and chat. D. Marketing, sales, advertising, and branding. Pick one. Trust your gut. Here's your chance to test yourself. The correct answer is A. Dependencies, milestones, critical path calculation, and resource scheduling is correct because the course lists dependencies, milestones, calculation of the critical path, and the scheduling of resources as the functions modern software adds to the Gantt chart. B is wrong because payroll, invoicing, tax filing, and hiring are administrative and operational functions, not the scheduling features the course attributes to Gantt software. C is wrong because email, video calls, file storage, and chat are general communication tools, not the name Gantt chart enhancements. D is wrong because marketing, sales, advertising, and branding are commercial activities unrelated to the scheduling functions added to the Gantt chart. The Gantt chart started as a simple horizontal bar chart showing tasks and their durations drawn by hand. Its original power was making a schedule visible at a glance. What transformed it into a central planning tool was the arrival of powerful computer software, which layered 4 major capabilities onto those basic bars. Modern software adds 4 key functions to the classic Gantt chart: dependencies, milestones, critical path calculation, and resource scheduling. Together, these 4 turn a static drawing into a dynamic recalculating model of the entire project. Dependencies are explicit links between tasks. Software shows which work must finish before other work can begin, something hand-drawn charts left implicit. Milestones are not tasks with duration but moments that matter, the end of a major phase or a no-go gate that gives the schedule its key reference points. The critical path is the longest chain of dependent tasks. It determines the earliest possible finish date. Software computes it automatically and updates it whenever the plan changes. Resource scheduling then lays people, equipment, and money against that same timeline, revealing when demand peaks and where resources must be arranged in advance. These 4 software-enabled functions, dependencies, milestones, critical path, and resource scheduling, are what carried Gantt's simple invention into the heart of modern project management. A hand-drawn chart showed a plan. A software-driven one recalculates instantly whenever anything changes. Question 30. After her husband's death, one researcher continued their shared work and produced a book in 1921 that reflected their goal of understanding manual tasks to reduce fatigue and injury. Which book did Lillian Gilbreth produce? Your options are A. The Principles of Scientific Management, B. A Guide to the Project Management Body of Knowledge, C. The Psychology of Management, D. The Standard for Project Management. Which would you go with? Lock it in before the reveal. The correct answer is C. The Psychology of Management. C is correct because the course states that Lillian Gilbreth produced The Psychology of Management in 1921, continuing the time and motion work she and Frank had begun. A is wrong because the Principles of Scientific Management is tied to the scientific management tradition of Frederick Taylor, not Lillian Gilbreth's 1921 book. B is wrong because A Guide to the Project Management Body of Knowledge, the PMBOK, was published by the Project Management Institute in 1987, not by Lillian Gilbreth. D is wrong because the standard for project management is the modern name tied to PMBOK 7, not the 1921 book Lillian Gilbreth wrote. Lillian Gilbreth is one of the founding figures of time and motion study. Sides, a field she helped build alongside her husband Frank, and then continued on her own terms after his death. The core method the Gilbreths developed was to observe manual tasks closely, identify wasted effort and sources of fatigue, and then define standard procedures that made the same work less tiring and more efficient. In 1921, Lillian published The Psychology of Management. Its title signals what set the Gilbreths apart. They studied not just physical motion, but how workers actually experience their tasks, and how management shapes that experience. Lillian brought genuine scientific credentials, a doctorate in psychology from Brown University, Adidas Maptide, to her research. She continued the shared work after Frank's death, and her book remains her clearest identifying detail for any exam. The detail exam writer's test is simple. The Psychology of Management, published in 1921, belongs to Lillian Gilbreth, not Taylor, not a later professional body. Pin the book and the year to her name. Question 31. An instructor stresses that the 12 project management principles in PMBOK 7 are not based on laws or rules that dictate exactly what to do. What do the principles do instead? Your options are: A. They prescribe a mandatory methodology for every project. B. They replace the code of ethics and professional conduct. C. They apply only to predictive projects, not adaptive ones. D. They guide the behaviors and actions expected of the project manager, team, and stakeholders. Don't overthink it. Which one feels right? The correct answer is D. They guide the behaviors and actions expected of the project manager, team, and stakeholders. D is correct because the course states the 12 principles are not prescriptive. They guide the behaviors and actions expected of the project manager, the team, and the stakeholders, and they work regardless of the delivery approach. A is wrong because prescribing a mandatory methodology is exactly what the principles do not do. They are non-prescriptive guides, not dictates. B is wrong because the principles do not replace the code of ethics. The code separately defines expectations while the principles guide behavior. C is wrong because the principles are not specific to any methodology and work regardless of delivery approach, so they are not limited to predictive projects. The 12 project management principles in the PMBOK 7th edition have one defining trait: they are non-prescriptive. Understanding exactly what that means separates a surface-level reading from real comprehension. A principle is a fundamental truth that shapes how people think and act. Unlike a rule, it does not prescribe a fixed procedure. It orients judgment without replacing it. That is precisely why the same 12 principles can hold across a construction project, a software rollout, or a research study. The contrast exam writer's test is simple but precise. A prescriptive rule says do exactly this. A guiding principle says hold this value and act accordingly. The 12 principles sit firmly in the second camp. They steer judgment rather than forbid a turn. It also helps to contrast the principles with the code of ethics. Where the principles guide behavior non-prescriptively, the code defines expectations and includes mandatory elements. Keeping the two straight is a common exam challenge, so remember, principles guide, the code governs. So the essential point is this: the 12 principles are non-prescriptive guides. They describe expected behaviors and values without laying down a fixed procedure, making them universally applicable regardless of how a team chooses to deliver. Question 32. A team is taught to bake quality into its processes and deliverables rather than inspect it in at the end. Which of the 12 principles does this practice express? Your options are A. Stewardship. B. Quality. C. Tailoring. D. Complexity. Got a guess? Lock it in. The correct answer is B. Quality. B is correct because the quality principle is stated as building quality into processes and products, or deliverables. Baking quality in rather than inspecting it at the end is that principle in action. A is wrong because stewardship is about being a diligent, respectful, and caring steward of resources, not specifically about building quality into deliverables. C is wrong because tailoring is about adapting the approach based on context, not about embedding quality in processes and products. D is wrong because complexity is about navigating complicating factors, not about building quality into the work. Among the 12 project management principles, quality holds a distinctive place. Its core philosophy is simple but powerful. Quality must be built into processes and products from the start, not inspected in at the end after the work is done. Catching defects late is expensive and unreliable. When quality is treated as a final inspection, problems surface after the damage is done, requiring rework. Building quality in upfront means defects are prevented rather than caught, making the process cheaper, faster, and more dependable. Think of a team producing a financial report. Instead of auditing the finished document for errors, they embed validation into each step of assembling the figures. Errors are caught and prevented as the work proceeds. That is the quality principle in action. Quality takes its place alongside other foundational principles, each naming a guiding value. Stewardship calls for careful custodianship, team for collaboration, stakeholders for engagement. Quality contributes the value of designing soundness into everything a project produces. When a scenario describes baking quality in from the start rather than inspecting at the end, that is the quality principle. It is not stewardship, tailoring, or complexity. It is quality recognized by its emphasis on prevention over inspection. Question 33. A study group is sorting items into the 8 performance domains versus the 12 principles. Which of the following is one of the 8 performance domains? Your options are A. Uncertainty, B. Stewardship, C. Tailoring, D. Adaptability and resiliency. Which one is it? Pause the video if you need more time. The correct answer is A. Uncertainty. A is correct because uncertainty is one of the 8 performance domains, alongside stakeholders, team, development approach and life cycle, planning, project work, delivery, and measurement. B is wrong because stewardship is the first of the 12 principles, not a performance domain. C is wrong because tailoring is one of the 12 principles, not one of the 8 performance domains. D is wrong because adaptability and resiliency is one of the 12 principles, not a performance domain. The PMBOK 7th edition organizes project work into 8 performance domains, distinct areas of activity that every project must attend to in order to succeed. Unlike the 12 principles, which guide behavior and values, the domains name the clusters of work itself. The 8 domains are stakeholders, team, development approach and life cycle, planning, project work, delivery, measurement, and uncertainty. Each names a different category of activity, from engaging affected people and building the team, to structuring the work, tracking performance, and managing risk. The domains function as an integrated system. They are interdependent, meaning none can be neglected without affecting the others. Critically, they operate simultaneously, all active at the same time throughout the project rather than one after another in sequence. A common exam trap is confusing domains with principles. Uncertainty is a performance domain. It names the area of work concerned with risk and the unknown. Stewardship, tailoring, and adaptability and resiliency, by contrast, are principles. Knowing both lists cold is the cleanest defense. Remember, the 8 performance domains are an integrated, adaptable system that covers every dimension of project work. They are shaped by the principles, but must be kept distinct from them. When in doubt, ask whether the item names an area of work or behavioral value. Question 34. An exam item asks about the relationship between the 12 principles and the 8 performance domains. Which statement is correct? Your options are: A. The domains dictate the principles, which operate one at a time. B. The principles and domains are unrelated and never interact. C. The principles guide and shape the domains, which function as an integrated, interdependent system operating simultaneously. D. The domains replace the principles once execution begins. Take a second. Which answer would you pick? The correct answer is C. The principles guide and shape the domains, which function as an integrated, interdependent system operating simultaneously. C is correct because the course states that the principles guide and shape the content and actions within the performance domains, and that the domains function as an integrated, interdependent system that operates simultaneously throughout a project. A is wrong because the relationship runs the other way. Principles guide the domains, and the domains operate simultaneously, not one at a time. B is wrong because the principles and domains are tightly linked, with principles shaping the domains, so they are not unrelated. D is wrong because the domains do not replace the principles. The principles continue to guide behavior throughout the project. The PMBOK winner 7th edition introduces 2 foundational structures, 12 principles and 8 performance domains. Understanding how they relate, or set, and in which direction, also is essential to reading the standard correctly. A principle is a fundamental truth or value guiding behavior. A performance domain is a group of related activities critical to delivering outcomes. The direction of influence runs one way. Principles guide and shape the domains, never the reverse. The 8 domains share 3 defining properties. They are integrated, forming a single system. They are interdependent, so a weakness in one undermines the rest. And they operate simultaneously, all running in parallel throughout the project, regardless of delivery cadence. Visually, the principles sit above the domains as a guiding hand. Their values around stakeholders, quality, and value delivery steer the content and actions inside each domain. The domains, tightly linked to one another, carry out that guidance as one integrated system. The relationship is directional and systemic. 12 principles guide and shape 8 performance domains. The domains are not a checklist worked through in sequence. They are a parallel, interdependent system steered by the values the principles supply. Question 35. How many principles and how many performance domains does PMBOK 7 present? Your options are A. 8 principles and 12 performance domains. B. 10 principles and 5 performance domains. C. 7 principles and 7 performance domains. D. 12 principles and 8 performance domains. Before I reveal it, which one do you think is right? The correct answer is D. 12 principles and 8 performance domains. D is correct because PMBOK 7 presents 12 principles and 8 performance domains. Keeping the 2 counts straight is a common test point. A is wrong because the counts are reversed. There are 12 principles and 8 domains, not 8 principles and 12 domains. B is wrong because PMBOK 7 does not present 10 principles or 5 domains. The correct counts are 12 and 8. C is wrong because the counts are not 7 and 7. PMBOK 7 defines 12 principles and 8 performance domains. The PMBOK 7th edition organizes its entire standard around two distinct sets, 12 principles and 8 performance domains. These two numbers attached to the right categories are a recurring exam point. The 12 principles supply fundamental values that guide behavior regardless of methodology. The 8 performance domains organize the areas of activity a project must handle. These two sets work together but serve completely different purposes. The standard is methodology neutral, meaning the same 12 principles and 8 domains apply whether a team works in a highly planned or highly adaptive way. 12 guiding values and 8 areas of work form the core. The most common error is swapping the numbers. Speaking of 8 principles or 12 domains, neither is correct. The standard is always 12 principles and 8 performance domains, and no other pairing is accurate. When you see this question on the exam, the answer is always 12 and 8, principles and domains, in that order. Memorize the pair as a unit, and you will not be tripped up by distractors. Question 36. While the 12 principles guide the behavior of those involved in projects, the code of ethics and professional conduct plays a different role. According to the course, what does the code do? Your options are it guides behavior in the same way the principles do. B, it defines the expectations for practitioners, including both aspirational ideals and mandatory behaviors. C, it lists the 8 performance domains. D, it applies only to senior management, not to practitioners. What's your answer? Commit to one before I continue. The correct answer is B. It defines the expectations for practitioners, including both aspirational ideals and mandatory behaviors. B is correct because the course states that unlike the principles, which guide, the Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct defines the expectations for practitioners and includes both aspirational ideals and mandatory behaviors. Is wrong because the code does more than guide. It defines expectations, which is the distinction the course draws against the principles. C is wrong because the 8 performance domains belong to PMBOK 7's performance section, not to the Code of Ethics. D is wrong because the code applies to project management practitioners generally, not only to senior management. The Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct plays a distinct role in project management. Unlike the 12 principles, which guide behavior, the code defines expectations for practitioners specifically. The code has 2 layers. Aspirational ideals describe the excellent conduct practitioners should pursue. Mandatory behaviors draw a hard line, a flaw of required conduct whose violation carries real consequences. This combination is what makes the code more than a guide. Principles can shape judgment, but they do not establish accountability. The code goes further by defining expectations, some of which are strictly enforceable. That shift from guiding to defining is the key distinction exam writers test. Think of the code as operating on 2 levels simultaneously. It pulls practitioners upward toward an ideal of excellent conduct while holding a firm lower boundary of required behavior that must never be crossed. The Code of Ethics, drawn from the 6th and 7th editions of the PMBOK, defines expectations with both aspirational ideals and mandatory behaviors. Principles guide, the code defines. That enforceable component is what sets the code apart. Question 37. A practitioner is asked to name the 4 tenets of the PMI Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct. Which set is correct? Your options are A. Stewardship, team, stakeholders, and value. B. Specific, measurable, achievable, and relevant. C. Responsibility, respect, fairness, and honesty. D. Scope, cost, time, and quality. Pick one. Trust your gut. Here's your chance to test yourself. The correct answer is C. Responsibility, respect, fairness, and honesty. C is correct because the 4 tenets of the Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct are responsibility, respect, fairness, and honesty. A is wrong because stewardship, team, stakeholders, and value are among the 12 principles, not the 4 ethics tenets. B is wrong because specific, measurable, achievable, and relevant are parts of the SMART criteria for objectives, not the ethics tenets. D is wrong because scope, cost, time, and quality describe the triple constraint and its center, not the 4 ethics tenets. The PMI Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct is built on 4 core tenets that define the character expected of every project management practitioner. These aren't vague ideals. Each tenet has a precise emphasis. An exams test whether you can match a scenario to the right one. Each tenet reduces to a single word. Responsibility is about ownership of decisions made or not made and every consequence that follows. Respect is high regard for people, for money, for reputation, for safety, and for resources entrusted to your care. Fairness is impartiality, deciding on the merits free from self-interest or favoritism. Honesty is truth in both communication and conduct. Together, these 4 tenets cover the principal ways professional conduct can go right or wrong. Ownership of consequences, regard for people and resources, impartiality in decisions, and truthfulness in every action. The nuance most often tested is telling fairness from honesty apart. If a scenario shows favoritism or a biased decision, that implicates fairness. If a scenario shows deception or misrepresentation, that implicates honesty. Asking which type of wrong is present will point you to the correct tenet every time. Question 38. A project manager awards a contract to a firm run by a close friend over a lower bidder and does not disclose the relationship. Which tenet of the Code of Ethics is most directly violated? Your options are A. Fairness, B. Honesty, C. Respect, D. Responsibility. Which would you go with? Lock it in before the reveal. The correct answer is A. Fairness. A is correct because fairness is the duty to make decisions and act impartially and objectively, free from competing self-interest, prejudice, and favoritism. Awarding a contract to a friend without disclosure is favoritism and a conflict of interest. B is wrong because honesty centers on truthfulness in word and conduct. The core wrong here is biased decision-making, even though the non-disclosure is related. C is wrong because respect is high regard for others and entrusted resources. The violation here is partiality in a decision, not disrespect. D is wrong because responsibility is ownership of one's decisions and their consequences. The primary breach here is the partiality of the award itself. Fairness is one of the 4 core tenets of the PMI Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct. At its heart, it is the duty to make decisions impartially and objectively, free from anything that could tilt the outcome for the wrong reasons. 3 forces corrupt impartiality: competing self-interest, where the decider stands to gain personally, prejudice, a bias for or against a group, and favoritism, choosing someone because of a relationship rather than the merits. Strip all 3 away and what remains is a fair decision. The classic fairness violation is a conflict of interest acted upon. A manager who awards a contract to a friend's firm over a lower bidder without disclosing the relationship. The decision is driven by favoritism, not an objective comparison of the bids. Exam questions often blur fairness with honesty. Fairness targets partiality in decisions, bias, favoritism, conflict of interest. Honesty targets truthfulness in communication. Non-disclosure may add a shade of dishonesty. But when the core wrong is an impartial decision, the tenet at stake is always fairness. Whenever a scenario involves conflict of interest, bias, or favoritism steering a decision, The tenet at stake is fairness. No lie needs to be told. The partial decision itself is the breach. Fairness fails the moment anything other than objective judgment drives the call. Question 39. A project manager knowingly reports a milestone as complete in the status report when it is actually only half finished. Which tenet of the Code of Ethics is most directly violated? Your options are A. Respect, B. Fairness, C. Responsibility, D. Honesty. Don't overthink it. Which one feels right? The correct answer is D. Honesty. D is correct because honesty is the duty to understand the truth and act truthfully in both communication and conduct. Reporting a half-done milestone as complete is a deliberately untruthful communication. A is wrong because respect concerns high regard for people and entrusted resources, not the truthfulness of a status report. B is wrong because fairness concerns impartial, unbiased decisions, not the accuracy of reported progress. C is wrong because responsibility concerns taking ownership of decisions and consequences. The specific wrong here is misrepresenting the truth. Honesty is one of the 4 core tenets of the PMI Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct. In a single word, honesty is about truth. The duty to understand what is actually the case and to act in a truthful manner in both communication and conduct. The tenet has 2 halves. The first is to understand the truth. You cannot claim ignorance when the facts are findable. The second is to act truthfully, which covers both what you say and how you behave. Avoiding outright lies is not enough. Your communications and actions must accurately reflect reality. Project management runs on information. Sponsors, team members, and customers all make decisions based on what a project manager tells them about progress, risks, and status. When that information is untruthful, every decision built on it is undermined, which is why honesty protects the integrity of the entire project. The tenet exam writers most often test against honesty is fairness. They can appear in the same scenario but target different wrongs. Honesty fails when the core wrong is lying, hiding information, or misrepresenting a situation. Fairness fails when the core wrong is favoritism or bias. Ask yourself, is this a failure of truth or a failure of impartiality? Whenever a scenario involves a practitioner who knows the real facts but communicates or behaves otherwise, bam das. Overstating progress, filing a false status report, hiding a risk, that is an honesty violation. Its watchwords are deceiving, misreporting, and misrepresenting, and its one-word core is always truth. Question 40. A project manager accepts the blame for a missed deadline that resulted from a decision the manager chose not to make in time. Which tenet does this acceptance most directly reflect? Your options are A. Honesty, B. Responsibility, C. Fairness, D. Respect. Got a guess? Lock it in. The correct answer is B. Responsibility. B is correct because responsibility is the duty to take ownership of the decisions made or failed to make, the actions taken or not taken, and the consequences that result. Owning the outcome of a decision not made is exactly this tenet. A is wrong because honesty is about truthful communication and conduct, not specifically about owning the consequences of inaction. C is wrong because fairness is about impartial, unbiased decisions, not about accepting ownership of a missed deadline. D is wrong because respect is about high regard for people and entrusted resources, not about taking ownership of consequences. Responsibility is one of the 4 tenets of the PMI Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct. At its core, it is about a single idea, ownership, not just of what you did, but of what you chose not to do. Mechanically, responsibility spans a complete grid of conduct. A practitioner owns decisions made and decisions deferred, actions taken and actions skipped. And in every case, the consequences that follow. Inaction is never an escape route. Picture a hub with 4 arms. Each arm, a decision made, a decision deferred, an action taken, an action skipped, feeds back to the same center point. The practitioner owns the consequences. No path leads away from accountability. It is worth keeping responsibility distinct from the other 3 tenets. Honesty is about truthfulness, fairness about impartiality, and respect about high regard for people and resources. When a scenario centers on a practitioner owning an outcome, especially the result of inaction, the tenet is responsibility. Whenever a scenario shows a practitioner stepping forward to accept blame for something they did or failed to do, without deflection, that is responsibility in action. Remember its one-word call, ownership. Question 41. A company requires that every project it funds connect to the activities, methods, and tactics it uses to meet its business goals. The course says this strategy is determined by whom? Your options are A. Senior management, B. The project manager, C. The project team, D. External customers. Which one is it? Pause the video if you need more time. The correct answer is A. Senior management. A is correct because the course defines strategy as the activities, methods, and tactics an organization uses to meet its business goals. And it states that strategy is determined by senior management to improve the company's value to its stakeholders. B is wrong because the project manager executes work that supports strategy, but does not set the organization's strategy. C is wrong because the project team carries out tasks. It does not determine organizational strategy. D is wrong because external customers may be stakeholders, but they do not set the organization's internal strategy. Every project exists to serve the organization's strategies here, not the other way around. Understanding where strategy comes from and how projects connect to it is essential for any project management exam. Strategy has a precise definition. It is the activities, methods, and tactics an organization will use to meet its business goals. Critically, strategy is determined by senior or executive management, not by project managers, teams, or external customers. Only senior management has the vantage point and authority needed to set direction. They decide which markets to pursue and how to deploy resources across competing possibilities. Choices that shape the entire enterprise, not just one project or team. Strategic goals are concrete. An organization might aim to increase market share, retain customers with best-in-class service, comply with new government requirements, or reduce costs through better tools. Each of these is a senior management set aim that can justify launching projects to achieve it. Remember, projects earn their funding by advancing leadership set strategy. When an exam scenario asks who sets strategy or confirms project alignment, the answer is always senior or executive management, never the project manager. Question 40. Midway through a project, leadership expands the scope by adding new features without changing anything else. Based on the triple constraint, what should leadership expect? Your options are and nothing changes because scope is independent of cost and schedule. B, the schedule will shorten on its own. C, cost and schedule will be stressed and will need to increase as well. D, quality will automatically improve to absorb the change. Take a second. Which answer would you pick? The correct answer is C. Cost and schedule will be stressed and will need to increase as well. C is correct because the triple constraint links scope, cost, and time. So change in one stresses the others. Increasing scope means cost and schedule must increase as well, with quality protected at the center of the triangle. A is wrong because scope is interdependent with cost and schedule, not independent. So adding scope cannot leave the others unchanged. B is wrong because expanding scope adds work, which lengthens rather than shortens the schedule. D is wrong because quality does not automatically improve. It is the value at the center that must be protected, while cost and schedule absorb the added scope. Every project is governed by 3 interlocking limits known as the triple constraint. Understanding how these limits interact is one of the core skills project management demands. The model is a triangle with scope, cost and time at each corner, and quality sitting at the center. Quality is what the practitioner must protect as the 3 corners are kept in balance. Scope covers the features and work to be delivered. Cost covers anything affecting the budget. Time or schedule covers when the work must finish. These are not independent dials. Changing any one of them puts pressure on the other 2. The defining feature of the triple constraint is interdependence. Adding resources to reduce completion time raises cost. Expanding scope means more money and more time are required. Compressing the schedule without adjustment threatens quality at the center. When a scenario changes scope, cost, or time, the discipline move is to trace the pressure onto the remaining 2 and name the trade-off. No corner changes in isolation, and quality at the center must always be guarded. Question 43. A team writes a project objective and checks whether it is possible given the financial resources and technology available. Which letter of the SMART criteria is the team testing? Your options are A. Specific, B. Achievable, C. Relevant, D. Time-based. Before I reveal it, which one do you think is right? The correct answer is B. Achievable. B is correct because the achievable or attainable criterion asks whether the objective is possible with the resources, including financial resources and the technology available. That is exactly the test described. A is wrong because specific asks exactly what the team is attempting to achieve, not whether it is possible with available resources. C is wrong because relevant asks whether the objective makes sense and fits the organization's strategic goals, not whether it is technically possible. D is wrong because time-based asks whether there is a date by which the objective must be completed, not whether resources make it possible. Every project needs a clear objective, and the SMART framework gives us 5 criteria to ensure that objective is worth pursuing. These criteria appear in the project scope statement and keep the team focused on outcomes that matter. SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-based. A goal that is specific names the precise target, while measurable means a number can be assigned so the team knows when success has been reached. Achievable specifically asks whether the target can be reached with available resources and technology. C722. It is not about strategic fit. Relevant handles that question, asking whether the objective actually serves the organization's strategy. If any one of the 5 criteria is missing, the project lacks a sound objective. Consider an objective to improve a vehicle's fuel economy by a target date. It names a precise goal, assigns a number in miles per gallon, is reachable with current technology, matters to customers, and carries a deadline, satisfying all 5 SMART criteria. Together, the 5 SMART criteria ensure every project objective is clearly defined, quantifiable, realistic, strategically relevant, and time-bound, all captured in the project scope statement. Question 44. A project met its scope, schedule, and budget. The course says this is one way to measure success, but it identifies a different ultimate measure of project success. What is that ultimate measure? Your options are A. Meeting the schedule baseline. B. Closing all procurement contracts. C. Reassigning resources back to the company. D. Delivering value. What's your answer? Commit to one before I continue. The correct answer is D. Delivering value. D is correct because the course's headline point is that meeting the triple constraint is one measure of success, but value is the ultimate measure. Value is the worth ultimately delivered to the organization and its stakeholders. A is wrong because meeting the schedule baseline is part of meeting the triple constraint, which the course calls one measure, not the ultimate one. B is wrong because closing procurement contracts is a closing phase activity, not the ultimate measure of project success. C is wrong because reassigning resources is a closing activity. It is not the ultimate measure of whether a project succeeded. We know a project can hit its scope, schedule, and budget, but does that make it truly successful? The answer depends on which measure you're using, and there's an important distinction between one measure and the ultimate measure. The triple constraint, scope, schedule, and budget, is a legitimate measure of project success, but it rests on an assumption that those three targets were well chosen and aimed at something genuinely worth building. If that assumption fails, hitting all three still delivers little of worth. Value is the worth, importance, or usefulness ultimately delivered to the organization and its stakeholders. It sits at the end of the value delivery chain, the thing deliverables and outcomes finally produce. A project succeeds in the fullest sense only when it delivers value, not merely when it lands within its constraints. Think of the triple constraint as a gate the project must pass through, necessary discipline, but not the destination. Value is what lies beyond that gate, the real worth produced for the organization and its stakeholders. Success is broader than a finished deliverable. Engaging subject matter experts should increase their skills, and proper documentation builds corporate memory through lessons learned. Remarkably, even a cancelled project can be deemed successful if experts learned and the organization's knowledge grew. Question 45. A project is cancelled before completion, yet the subject matter experts gained skills and the organization's documented corporate knowledge grew. According to the course, how can this project be judged? Your options are A. Successful, because the experts learned and corporate knowledge increased. B. Automatically a failure, because it was cancelled. C. An operation, because it did not finish. D. A program, because multiple experts were involved. Pick one. Trust your gut. Here's your chance to test yourself. The correct answer is A. Successful because the experts learned and corporate knowledge increased. A is correct because the course explicitly says even a cancelled project can be successful if the subject matter experts learned and the organization's corporate knowledge level increased. Grown expertise and documented lessons count as success. B is wrong because cancellation does not automatically mean failure. The course treats grown corporate knowledge as a form of success. C is wrong because a cancelled project is still a project, not an operation. Operations are defined by ongoing, no in-date work. D is wrong because involving several experts does not make the effort a program. A program is a group of related projects. One of the most counterintuitive ideas in project management is that a project can be cancelled before completion and still be judged a success. The key is understanding what projects actually deliver beyond their primary deliverable. Every project is simultaneously three things: a machine for producing a deliverable, an occasion for subject matter experts to grow their skills, and an opportunity to build the organization's corporate memory through documented lessons. When a subject matter expert engages with a project, their skills sharpen. When the project documents what it learned, that knowledge enters the organization's corporate memory. available to every future effort, regardless of whether the original deliverable was ever finished. A cancelled project passes the success test when two conditions are met. Subject matter experts learned and became more capable, and the organization's corporate knowledge level increased through proper documentation. Both conditions together mean real value was produced. Completion is not the sole test of project success. Skills grown and lessons captured are genuine value, and value, not a crossed finish line, is the ultimate measure. A wisely cancelled project with captured lessons is a success, not a failure. Question 46. A project manager is explaining the project life cycle to a new sponsor and lists its 4 phases in order. Which sequence is correct? Your options are A. Planning, defining, closing, executing. B. Executing, planning, defining, closing. C. Defining, planning, executing, closing. D. Defining, executing, planning, closing. Which would you go with? Lock it in before the reveal. The correct answer is C. Defining, planning, executing, closing. C is correct because the 4 life cycle phases in order are defining, planning, executing, and closing. The project is defined, then planned, then the work is executed, and finally it is closed. A is wrong because this sequence places planning before defining and closing before executing, which is out of order. B is wrong because executing cannot come first. The project must be defined and planned before work is executed. D is wrong because planning must come before executing, not after, so this order is incorrect. Project management has a precise definition from the Project Management Institute. It is the application of knowledge, skills, tools, and techniques to project activities. These 4 elements are worth memorizing exactly because the phrase in itself is a tested point. A project manager draws on 2 categories of competency: general management skills like communication, and project-specific skills like schedule development, network charts, work breakdown, and risk management. Both feed into managing a project well. Every project unfolds across 4 phases in a fixed sequence: defining, planning, executing, and closing. Defining formalizes the idea. Planning builds detailed plans. Executing is where the bulk of the work and deliverables happen. Closing delivers outcomes and captures lessons. Although the sequence is fixed, the phases overlap. Boundaries are soft, not hard walls. Planning and executing are iterative. A team can loop back from executing to planning to revise the plan when objectives are not being met. Remember these 2 things. Project management is the application of knowledge, skills, tools, and techniques to project activities, and the life cycle always runs defining, planning, executing, closing, in that order, with overlaps and an iterative middle. Question 47. During the first life cycle phase, the team formalizes the idea into a proposal, names the sponsor and project manager, and drafts the document that authorizes the project's resources, scope, and authorities. What event marks the end of this defining phase? Your options are A. The deliverables are ready to be delivered. B. The scope, budget, and schedule baselines are approved. C. The lessons learned are documented. D. The project charter is approved. Don't overthink it. Which one feels right? The correct answer is D. The project charter is approved. D is correct because the defining phase ends once the project charter is approved. The charter, agreed by the sponsor and key stakeholders, defines the project and authorizes its resources, roles, responsibilities, authorities, and scope. A is wrong because deliverables being ready to deliver marks the end of the executing phase, not the defining phase. B is wrong because approval of the scope, budget, and schedule baselines ends the planning phase, not the defining phase. C is wrong because documenting lessons learned is part of the closing phase, not the end of defining. The defining phase, sometimes called initiation, is the first phase of the project life cycle. Its central concern is a simple question: what is this project supposed to accomplish? It begins with senior management's approval to move forward and ends at one specific, well-marked event. During the defining phase, 4 core activities take place. The idea is written up as a formal proposal. A sponsor and project manager are named, a charter is drafted, and a selection decision is reached about whether the project will be implemented. At the center of the phase is the project charter, a document agreed upon by the sponsor and key stakeholders, much like a contract. It defines the project and simultaneously authorizes its scope, resources, roles, responsibilities, and authorities. Because it both defines and authorizes, it is what converts a proposal into a sanctioned project. A common exam trap is matching the wrong ending event to the defining phase. Defining ends when the charter is approved, not when baselines are set, not when deliverables are complete, and not when lessons are documented. Each phase has its own signature closing event, and the charter approval belongs exclusively to defining. Before charter approval, the project is still just a proposal under consideration. The moment the sponsor and key stakeholders sign off, the project has its mandate, and planning can begin. Charter approval is the clean boundary that closes the defining phase. Question 48. The course notes that the life cycle phases overlap and that one pair is iterative, so a team can loop back to revise a baseline when objectives are not being met. Which 2 phases are the iterative pair? Your options are A. Defining and closing, B. Planning and executing, C. Defining and planning, D. Executing and closing. Got a guess? Lock it in. The correct answer is B. Planning and executing. B is correct because the course identifies planning and executing as the iterative phases. Execution can loop back to planning to modify the budget, schedule, or scope when objectives are not being met. It is wrong because defining and closing are not the iterative pair. The loop happens between planning and executing. C is wrong because although defining precedes planning, the iterative looping the course describes is between planning and executing, not defining and planning. D is wrong because executing can loop back to planning, not forward into closing. So executing and closing are not the iterative pair. The project life cycle has 4 phases, but 2 facts complicate the simple sequence that most people picture. Phases overlap at their edges, and one specific pair is iterative, meaning work can loop back rather than always moving forward. The 4 phases are defining, planning, executing, and closing. They are distinguishable by their focus and their ending events, but they are not sealed compartments. Phases blend into one another at their edges. When execution reveals that objectives are not being met, the team loops back to planning to revise the baselines, the approved scope, schedule, and budget. The sponsor's approval of those 3 baselines marks the boundary where planning ends and execution begins. The iterative loop exists because no plan survives contact with reality unchanged. Problems surface, estimates prove wrong, and circumstances shift. Allowing the loop between planning and executing lets teams revise baselines rather than executing a plan they already know is flawed. When asked which phases are iterative, the answer is planning and executing, not any other pair. Execution can send work back to planning to modify scope, schedule, or budget, and the phases overlap rather than meeting at hard walls. Question 49. A product design manager is assigned to run a project as a second duty, and the test engineers she needs to direct do not report to her. The course would describe her situation as A. Your options are A. Working project manager in a matrix situation. B. Dedicated project manager with full authority. C. Portfolio manager. D. Project sponsor. Which one is it? Pause the video if you need more time. The correct answer is A. Working project manager in a matrix situation. A is correct because a working project manager is a functional manager who also runs a project as a second role, and a matrix situation is one in which contributors do not report directly to the project manager, yet the manager is responsible for their work. Both descriptions fit her exactly. B is wrong because a dedicated project manager's primary role is project management, while the scenario shows a functional manager taking the project on as a second duty without direct authority. C is wrong because a portfolio manager oversees a group of related programs, not a single project run as a second duty. D is wrong because a sponsor authorizes and funds the project. The scenario describes someone managing the project work, not sponsoring it. Not every project manager has project management as their primary job. Understanding the difference between a dedicated and a working project manager helps explain why some projects face structural disadvantages from the start. A dedicated project manager's sole focus is managing projects. A working project manager is primarily a functional manager, someone like a product design manager, software-bound, who is handed a project on top of their real job. Their center of gravity remains the functional role. The course names 3 specific problems. First, PM is the person's second role, so emphasis and passion stay in the functional job. Second, they may lack project management skills or training beyond a simple shortage of time. Third, contributors may not report directly to them. A matrix situation where responsibility exists without direct authority. This is the matrix organization. The working project manager is accountable for work produced by people who sit outside their reporting line. Responsibility without direct authority is the defining strain of the matrix, and it hits hardest when the manager is already stretched thin. Recognizing the working project manager's trait cluster, a second role, possible gaps in time and training, and contributors outside the reporting line, explains why these projects often struggle and why influence matters more than formal authority. Question 50. The course stresses that people skills are vitally important for a project manager. What is the authority-based reason it gives for why these soft skills matter so much? Your options are A. Project managers always have complete authority over every stakeholder. B. Soft skills remove the need for a schedule or a budget. C. Project managers often have little real authority and must negotiate for resources and influence diverse, sometimes conflicting stakeholders. D. External customers always report directly to the project manager. Take a second. Which answer would you pick? The correct answer is C. Project managers often have little real authority and must negotiate for resources and influence diverse, sometimes conflicting stakeholders. C is correct because the course explains that a project manager often has little, if any, real authority and must negotiate for resources and influence a variety of stakeholders with differing, sometimes conflicting priorities. Authority is irrelevant with external customers, which is why soft skills matter so much. A is wrong because the course says the opposite. Project managers frequently lack real authority, which is exactly why people skills are needed. B is wrong because soft skills do not replace the schedule or budget. The project still requires both, regardless of the manager's interpersonal skill. D is wrong because external customers do not report to the project manager. The course notes that with external stakeholders, the manager's authority is irrelevant. Project managers need more than technical know-how, because they often have little or no formal authority over the people they depend on. People skills become their primary tool for getting things done. Authority erodes in three key situations when working with cross-functional experts, when navigating stakeholders whose goals conflict, and especially when dealing with customers outside the organization. In that last case, only influence remains. The course names 6 working tools: negotiation to secure resources, conflict resolution to handle clashing priorities, communication to carry intent, prioritization to order demands, budgeting to allocate scarce resources, and critical thinking to reason without bias or emotion. 2 skills receive special emphasis. Leadership centers on influencing others rather than commanding them. Emotional intelligence, built on self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management, is especially important because it can be learned and developed over time. The key takeaway is simple. Project managers lead people they often cannot command. So negotiation, influence, and emotional intelligence are not optional extras. They are the job.
You have reached the end of our first question set. For the free complete exam preparation, visit our website link in the description, where you find thousands more practice questions and comprehensive study guides. Thanks for studying with us today. See you in the next video.